Hello and welcome to another edition of Football Express. I'm Stephen Looney and joining me in the studio today are Chris Morgan and Glenn Ferguson. You're both very welcome, gentlemen. As ever, a quick recap on recent results in local football. Last weekend we'll start with the Sports Direct Premiership. Saturday, January 25th, Dungannon Swifts 1, Coleraine 1. Crusaders 3, Portadown 2. Glenavon 2, Carrick Rangers 1. Larne 2, Ballymena United 1. Loughgall 1, Glentoran 2. And last Saturday evening, Linfield 2, Cliftonville 1 at Windsor Park. Then on Tuesday night, we had Linfield 2, Crusaders 1 this time. And looking ahead to this weekend's fixtures, it's Irish Cup weekend, so we'll start with the Clearwater Irish Cup 6th round draw. Friday, January 31st, Glentoran versus Linfield. Massive game at the Oval, Saturday, February 1st. Ballymallard United against Carrick Rangers. Bangor versus Anna United. Crusaders versus Limavady United. Dollingstown versus Loughgall. Dungannon Swifts versus Coleraine. Myola Park versus Ards. And there's one fixture in the Sports Direct Premiership. Larne versus Portadown as the reigning champs try and reel Linfield in. Chris, I have it down here. It's Irish Cup weekend. We must start with a tale around Glens versus the Blues. You know them both very well. It's a fascinating encounter. They always are, but this is even more so because the two clubs are on the rise. Glentoran unbeaten in 12 games, 10 wins, including the County Antrim Shield win over Larne. Linfield are unbeaten in 9 with only a 0-0 draw versus Glentoran, spoiling a perfect run. And they're 19 points clear of the Glens at the top of the league, having played 2 games more. David Healy, he signed Kieran Offord, formerly of Crusaders, is at the icing on the cake. Blues are looking to win their first game against the old rivals this season. Both teams going well. Where will the battle be won and lost, Chris? And are you looking forward to it? Like, it's got all the ingredients to be a humdinger.
Yeah, it has, and both teams, as you've said, are on the rise. Linfield, their win last night that increases their lead at the top of the league. They'll be going in, I guess, really good form. Both teams in good form, but just again having that increase in their lead, to some degree, it might take the pressure off them a little bit and put more pressure onto the Glens. The Glens are now starting to perform like maybe we would have remembered them in previous days, and they look like a team that are possibly going to challenge a little bit of stability. Declan's come in and back end of last season made a lot of noise about stuff that he wasn't happy with, and you could argue to say he's so far this season done a good job. So where's the game going to be won and lost? You sound like you're sitting on the fence here, but they are always very difficult games to call. Quite often who manages to find that first goal will be important. I don't necessarily see it being a high scoring game, because that very thing of whoever scores the first goal will probably want to kill the game a little bit. So I've genuinely no real ideas as to who wins, and probably because of how the other games have gone so far this season, the Glens are in the ascendancy. You almost feel that surely Linfield have to go and they'll pick up a win at some point. But then by the same token, Glentoran have got the wins in this fixture this season. I'm totally unsure, I have to be honest, as to who will win the game. The one thing I'll say is that whoever wins it will fancy they can go on and lift the Irish Cup. Then there's teams that are out that you would look at and think there'll be obstacles down the line, but whoever wins this game arguably has one hand in the cup.
Thanks, Chris, indeed. Glenn, I think what's significant there, yes, Chris is 100% right. Declan Devine has got the grips with whatever he wasn't happy with last season. Raft of new players in, loads of players left. In the last few weeks, it's now all come together really well. They won the Shield, are in the final of the Bet McLean Cup as well in March. The Shield, will that give them the impetus, a bounce to help them against Linfield? Or as Chris rightly makes a point, maybe the Linfield will have the shackles off a wee bit more because they're extending their lead at the top of the league as such?
Yeah, I think it will. When you look back even the previous years, Larne, the first trophy they won was the County Antrim Shield. And that was a springboard for them to go on. Winning trophies, no matter what, there are people sometimes would, belittle the County Antrim Shield, but it's a trophy. We've 4 trophies to play for, and if you win one, you're doing quite well. The County Antrim Shield is probably the last favourite of anyone to win, but that gives them a springboard. It's going to give Glentoran the confidence. And I think the important thing for Glentoran, you're asking where it might be won and lost. When you look at the passion that Fuad Souley showed in the County Antrim Shield final, I think the way he's been playing recently is really driving Glentoran on to be where they are now with the matches they're winning, and they're unbeaten in so many games. and to win that trophy. I think he's been instrumental in what they're doing, but the players all in around him are playing really well as well. As for Linfield, you know, Matthew Fitzpatrick could be a massive loss. His work rate, his hold-up play, his goal threat, you know, it could be an early indication to see how Kieran Offord does in a Big Two game. And there's no bigger than an Irish Cup game with Linfield and Glentoran. But Linfield could win it with Joel Cooper as well. When the nose of the potential move to Coleraine broke with Joel, you know, I've seen a few games and he's been by far Linfield's best player. He's a match winner. He's been scoring goals, creating chances, and scored another goal during the week and possibly couldn't have another 2 or 3. So I think those players will be instrumental in which way the match goes. I have to agree with Chris. I think it's going to be very, very close. There's a lot at stake. If Linfield lose the game, they still have the bounce back that they look potentially a game that they're going to go on and win the league. You know, when we played back in the day, come January, February, if you're 10 or 12 points clear, Linfield very rarely lost the league. And I'd be very surprised if that happened. If they beat Glentoran in the Cup, the Glens are out of the big Irish Cup and they're possibly out of the league campaign as well. So it'll be a massive match, big crowd, and there'll be a lot expected from both teams. Supporters will be looking for both their teams to step up, but very much like Chris, on the night, no one knows what could happen. It's going to be a tough one to call.
I mean, it's the obvious thing to state that first goal in any game of football is important, but I just think in this type of game, and I'll use the example that Glentoran get it, the big thing that, as you said, they're them winning the County Antrim Shield, that springboard. But I think the big issue that Glentoran have had over a lot of years is that the crowd haven't been necessarily with them, and at the first sign of it going wrong, they turn against them. I think there's a different feeling that exists now, that they believe in what's happening. County Antrim Shield, as you rightly say, it's not the one that you start off the season wanting to win, but when you get to the final, you want to win it, and you enjoy the moment. Like, it gives you that opportunity. Okay, we've won in the trophy cabinet now. We look at what's coming next, and they have a League Cup final coming up. Irish Cup is obviously of the most importance of the 3 cups, but I think if they get the first goal, that takes the crowd with them, and it gives, you know, it's like gives you something to hold on to a little bit, and that could be, you know, potentially a huge situation if it happens for Glentoran. If they don't get the first goal, I don't think the crowd go against them though now, and that might be the difference. But I do think, like, you know, go back to that point, is that first goal will be so important in this game.
Well, just talking about that, I want to talk about Kieran Offord briefly. I mean, it was the biggest signing in the January transfer window, maybe the most significant. Maybe that's a better way to put it. Kieran Offord, I've watched him a lot at Seaview. He's a 20-year-old striker on loan from St Mirren. I think he scored 13 goals before Christmas. Like, diminutive, very fast, strong, tenacious, purposeful, great eye for goal. Crusaders wanted to hold on until the end of the season, obviously. St Mirren were, well, they weren't. Anyway, out of the blue, let's say, there was a full call and we're taking him back. Glentoran thought they were getting him, but I think that was overlooking the relationship between David Healy and Stephen Robinson at St Mirren. So, Linfield and like Flynn signed him, and I think it's a great business deal for Stephen Robinson and St Mirren, because, you know, they could do with the cash, and it is a sizable sum. Possibly we hear ending up possibly in the region of 120, 125 grand. Will he make the difference? I think he will. My only concern, Chris, is that Kieran Offord is a little bit like Chris McKee, you know, in terms of, you know, diminutive, nippy, good eye for goal. So I wonder, Glenn's right, he'll get a chance probably on Friday night, but for the rest of the season, will he work at Linfield playing alongside Matthew Fitzpatrick, you'd assume? What, are we shocked at the signing, the news of the signing, Chris?
I suppose it did, I guess, come out of the blue a little bit. He's made waves this season, he's scoring goals. It's a different challenge. You know, he came into the league a little bit of an unknown and hit the ground running. Obviously, he scores goals, you know, attention goes on to him. Clearly a good enough player that Linfield want to make that move, but it can be a hard place to play as well. It's just how he settles. We were talking earlier, there's good players have not been able to cope at Linfield, and he's going with a in Irish League terms a huge price tag. So Friday could be, it's almost not the game that he would maybe want to start his Linfield career. But then by the same token, if it goes well for him, it could be the absolute perfect start. So I mean, it's hard to, you'll only know the answer to this here at 10 o'clock on Friday night. If he starts, he does really well, maybe scores a goal, an important goal, his Linfield career could just take off. By the same token, if it goes the other way and he has a tough game, which he could well do, and Linfield exit, Linfield fans won't be too long and looking and going, I'm not sure about your man.
Well, while I have you here, Chris, if you don't mind me asking, because if I remember correctly, you went from Seaview to Windsor Park, didn't you? Mm. How did you cope? How did you adapt? What were you like early on?
It was an easier move because I was a signing that was arguably, a potential. I wasn't signing costing 125 grand. I was signing costing nothing, and it wasn't like I was on big money. It was a punt that they were taking because I was kind of one of those players. As it was reasonably young, 22, had shown, I suppose, flashes of potential, but I wasn't coming as a big name. I was having to, prove that I was good enough to be there, and that's a totally different place to be in. And it was a move that whenever I was going there, I'm not sure if I'm good enough. And I'm looking at people like Spike, and I genuinely, saying this, I'll not embarrass him, but I remember looking at times. I was injured when I first went, and I remember when the team would have been playing on a Saturday and they were warming up, and I remember watching, and you would have been warming up, and you were striking balls 70 yards across the pitch off your left foot, and I remember looking at it going, I can't do that, Not that it's a big thing, but it was just something that I noticed. I had to sort of bridge the gap and be. I proved that I could play there, but it's much easier when you're coming with low expectations, and that's the total difference. You were doing it as a £55,000 striker, but 10 or 15 years of knocking goals in. You the pedigree. Kieran Offord has 3 or 4 months of doing it, and he's 20. And he's clearly a good player, but it's a hard place to go, and it's a hard place to go as a centre forward with expectation. There's been good centre forwards that haven't cut it there before because you will be solely judged on one thing: goals.
Thanks, Chris. Looking elsewhere, going to look at in the Irish Cup as well, and it's an intriguing one because, I entirely agree with you. Whoever wins between Glentoran and Linfield, must have a great chance. They're both in great form, both big clubs. But let's be fair to the other clubs. Let's look, and I'm going to ask you both if you see a shock anywhere or anything coming out of the ether. Ballinamallard against Carrick, Bangor against Anna, Championship, two sides going well. Cruise against Limavady, who knocked out Larne. Dollingstown against Loughgall, a Mid-Ulster derby. Dungannon Swifts against Coleraine, all Premiership, and interestingly, Rodney McAree and Dean Shields have managed both clubs. Moyola Park against Ards. Ards will be hopeful there. So, as I say, Mid-Ulster teams in the mix. Can you see an upset anywhere, Glenn?
You just never know with the Irish Cup. I think probably one of the intriguing ones is Ballinamallard. Ballinamallard at home to Carrick has got the potential to be an upset. I've looked at Carrick over the last number of weeks, and they're not scoring an awful lot of goals. There are a lot of 0-0 matches. Irish Cup, Ballinamallard will be up for it. This is their cup final. They're playing against a Premier team, and Carrick will get it tough down there. That has the potential to be an upset. Other than that, there's other matches. I'm going to go to the Bangor and Anna match myself. I think it'll be a good game, two of the top teams in the Championship. But when these teams win, they've got an opportunity. You've got your Moyolas and your Ards and your Loughgalls and teams like that who are capable of being beaten in the next round, which is the quarter-final, which is smaller, lesser teams, so-called, could be in the semi-final of the Irish Cup this year, the way things have panned out. I think Dungannon will certainly be a match for Coleraine in current form. Particularly being at home. Coleraine again were stumbling a little bit in the league. Dungannon were flying for a number of weeks, so that could be another one where I think Dungannon could take the spoils there. But a lot of intriguing games. But the Irish Cup can throw up anything, which has done in the years gone by. Any result can happen on Irish Cup Day. But we'll see how the matches pan out. And the first one on Friday night will be the one, because whoever wins that will be looking at the draw because they'll see it as potential. We could go all the way to the final here.
That's your markers, right, Spike? Thanks, Chris. Just talking about a couple of clubs, I agree. I think Bangor versus Anna United is fascinating. Did you play with the Golden Child at Windsor?
Oh, aye.
Lee Feeney, yeah, well, indeed.
He's doing a great job.
He's done a fabulous job, him and Doogie, yeah. So I think that's a very attractive one. The Swifts, another one of your former clubs. You must love what's going on down there, because I know you had a really happy time down there, didn't
Yeah,
you?
well, I was only there for about 3 months, but I went there because I was at Newry where it was chaos, and I went to Dungannon just to enjoy playing football. Before I knew I was going to finish the end of the season, and I went there, and there was Rod was part of the backroom staff, who's now managing, and Darren Murphy, good mate of ours, and Dixie Robinson. So just 3 good football lads, and that's the type of club that Dungannon is. It's a very accommodating place. It's full of good people. And I loved the time I was there. It was very brief, but for me it was a nice way to finish playing. And I see what they're doing now. It doesn't surprise me. Rod was an unbelievably good footballer, and he's clearly, inherited his footballing ability and his coaching ability, and the way his teams play, they're always good to watch. So I think they could be. It's not the best draw in terms of Coleraine, or very capable side too, but I would tend to agree that I think Dungannon could get through that, and then they'll be looking. Everybody's going to look at the next bit and go, as long as you avoid who wins on Friday night, you could be in a final. The one that I do wonder about for an upset could be the Crews and Limavady. Limavady are a very, very decent championship team. Obviously knocked Larne out in the last round. The Crews haven't lost their main goal threat, and it's been a bit of an up and down season for them. Crews are still favourites, and on any given day both teams play to their potential. Crusaders win, but Limavady are going well in the championship, and there'll be a tough task. That could be one that I see maybe a potential upset. Sorry, I know you're a hatchet man.
Yes, indeed, very much so, but it's all the thrill of the cup. Dungannon Swifts, I have seen a lot of them this season, and I have huge regard for the club and for what Rodney's doing, and I think they could be dark horses. I don't maybe see them slipping away as much in the league, believe it or believe it not. I know that maybe flying in the face of what most people think. I just look at their team, and very often I don't look at the crest and the colours. I just look at a team and the players and whatnot, and if you look right through at their team, yes, young team, underpinned with a lot of experience. 2 fullbacks, Adam Glennie, Stephen Scott, absolutely superb. Gael Bigidi-Mana is running a show in the middle of the park. They've got great young players like Tomas Galvin. McGovern's playing well up top. There's just a lot to like. I am not saying Dungannon Swifts will win the cup necessarily, but I think they're going to have a right dig at it.
Yeah, I think, Rodney's embedded in Dungannon right from early doors. His father, obviously, the connection there. But I think Rodney is a really nice guy, but I think he can be strict when he wants to be. His man management must be really excellent because the players respect him for what he does, and he's getting the best out of his players by doing that. Even Dean Curry, who's been about a bit, he's playing really well. Biggie, as you said, in the centre midfield. Andy Mitchell up top, has maybe found somewhere very comfortable playing again. McGovern, John McGovern is excelling this year. I know there was a number of clubs, Linfield included. Glentoran were trying to get his signature for it, but he was happy to go to Dungannon, and Rodney's getting the best out of those players. And I think if you're a manager and you have players who are like that, and the style of play as well, the players are obviously loving the style of play.
They have a clear plan. You can see that there is an understanding of how they want to play.
So if you've got that mix of a good manager with respect, players working hard and will get everything for you and want to play football, and they're playing with a smile on their faces, you have a chance of winning football matches, and that's what's happening to them this year.
Thanks, Glenn. Chris, that's a cup, I think, fairly reasonably comprehensively covered. I do want to look at this outstanding Sports Direct Premiership fixture on Saturday, Chris. Larne are playing Portadown in the league, hoping to close the gap on Linfield. They're 25 points behind with 7 games in hand. Now, I want to talk about, can they beat Portadown on Saturday first and foremost, and then widen it out and say, do we think the Larne can win all their outstanding fixtures and make up ground on Linfield? Bearing in mind there's a few days left of the transfer window open. But let's look at Larne against Portadown in the league at Inver Park. Chris, who do you fancy?
I think Larne will view it as they can't afford not to win it, and that has to be their motivation. I mean, that almost gets to your next point about can they close the gap enough. But yeah, they just have to win it. I think most things go in their favour. They're home. They're generally good at home. You've got that argument of against the team that plays in 4G against the team that plays in grass, and trying to acclimatise to the Portadown going and they're playing grass and their home fixtures. And that, I always think that has relevance. But yeah, I think Larne win the game. I don't think, I think their motivation is that they have an opportunity while Linfield are playing in the Cup, that they have to take it. And I think that in itself should be enough to, there's no doubt that they're struggling. Their league form is not where it has been for the last 2 years. It's a million miles away from where it's been. But I think Saturday's game should be 3 points. I can't see it being anything else.
Well, let me put you on the spot a little bit, Chris, if you don't mind. Say Larne don't win. I don't want to be too sensationalist here, but say Larne don't win on Saturday. Not God forbid, but I mean from their point of view. Say Portadown beat them. League over?
I can't
from
see
their
them,
point of view?
I can't see them closing that gap regardless. Their form to date hasn't shown that they're going to. I mean, if we're talking about the 7 games in hand, the only thing they can get back into it is by winning all 7 games. But they haven't shown that level of form at any stage in the season. The big challenge for them this year was managing European football running into the domestic season where it's normally done and dusted. That has been their big challenge this year, and they've struggled with it. There's no other team in the Irish League has had to cope with that in the past, and it's been proven this year that they haven't been able to cope with it. And that's not a criticism; that's a reality. There's bigger and better clubs than Larne, with respect, struggle to manage European football on a Thursday night, domestic football on the weekend. So again, it's not a criticism, it's just a reality. They haven't been able to cope with it. They'll be better for the experience, I would suspect, and if they ever get to that point again, that they're in and for the other Irish League clubs that would have aspirations to be there. But they just haven't been able to cope, and that's something that has had a huge impact on their defence of their league title, and Linfield have taken advantage of that. I can't see Larne getting back into it. I can't see them winning the 7 games they've got in hand, and that's the only way that they would be able to put themselves into a position to challenge for the title.
Thanks, Chris. Glenn, I agree with Chris entirely. It's no disrespect to Larne whatsoever. I just think with the fixture congestion, to win 7 games in hand between now and the end of the season, Linfield have only 12 games to go in the league. To win the 7 games and then make up the ground as well and beat Linfield.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult for them. Listen, on any given day, when Larne line up against Portadown or line up against Carrick or line up against whoever Glentoran, they're capable of winning the game. But as was proven there in Europe, they were playing Thursday, Sunday, Thursday, Sunday, Thursday, Sunday, and they couldn't cope with that, as Chris said. Through the month of February, they're going to have to play Saturday, Tuesday, 4 weeks in a row as well. To do that and be consistent and win games, and one of those games is against Linfield. They've now lost Levi Ives, they've lost Joe Thompson. Kieran Offord picked up an injury last week. Whether he's going to be fit enough to play in some of these games coming up. Their squad's thinner as well. So it's going to be very, very difficult for them. If they do, fair play to them. Because as a club, if you're in a team, you're sitting 20 points, you'd rather have the points on the board. Larne have the potential to claw it back. I can't see it happening. I can't see them winning 7 or 8 games on the bounce to claw back those points. So I think it's certainly Linfield's league to lose now. There's no doubt about that, and I think the defining moment will be the Larne game. I think it's in 2 weeks' time, midweek. Larne certainly have to win that game. If they don't win that game, it's league over.
Well, let me pick up on something you mentioned there, and let me tease it out if you don't mind. You mentioned their departures from Larne. Levi Ives going to Coleraine. I think knowing football the way we do, and I think we can understand it, it's a lucrative offer. Even though I'm a bit surprised that he's leaving in January. But also Joe Thompson, he played against Glentoran in the Shield final, and from what I understand, he was doing the warm down the next day at the Oval, signed for the Glens. That's another curious one for me. I'd like to hear your views on why he goes, and also Benji McGee, who signed from Loughgall in the summer, hasn't really had a look in on his way back to Loughgall on loan.
Well, I'm going to be totally honest here. Whenever the Benji McGee transfer was going through to go to Larne, I was really, really surprised that Benji had don't get me wrong, again, could be possibly like Kieran Offord. Benji had a good spell at Loughgall. I honestly don't think that Benji McGee was going to fit into Larne's style of play. The way they're all very technical players. In the last couple of years, they've been very, very good. Benji with Loughgall was playing a lot more in the pace, on the counter-attack, because they were generally under pressure, and we were playing on the counter-attack a lot of time with his pace and got him to where he was. Where Larne generally dominate the ball, and I don't think Benji was that type of player. So Didn't work out for him. He's tried, he's given it a go, and he's went back to Loughgall. But whether Larne, I'm not sure about the whole financial fair play and whether they're trimming their squad now to try and accommodate, just for the squad that they have now to make sure their figures are right. But it's going to be very difficult when you lose players, and like there's no doubt, and God forbid nothing serious, but they will pick up niggles and knocks over these number of games, and their squad's going to be even thinner. And like there's one player they can't afford to lose is Andy Ryan. If they lose Andy Ryan, it's curtains for them. It really is. But on the other side, they're out of the Irish Cup. They've nothing else to play for now apart from the league. They can put all their eggs in one basket and go out and try and win the games. Like Chris, I can't see it happening, but they've got the potential to do it.
Quick word about Portadown, if you don't mind, Glenn. They're going well in the league. They got up from the Championship. We know they've got a bit of financial muscle behind them as well. Niall Curry's rung the changes. It's working for them at the minute. Yeah, on their day again, they've signed players who are capable of winning games. They've proved that throughout the season and had a really good start. The match against Larne, I think Larne will win simply because they're at home. Like Chris, I agree, Larne are a better footballing team on the 4G pitch. A couple of weeks' time, I think they'll go to Shamrock Park, be a completely different game. Portadown play to their strengths, get the ball forward. Larne won't be able to play the free-flowing football that they used to because the pitch isn't good. And Portadown, I would imagine, will make sure it's not good leading up to that match. Portadown have been, a bit like Dungannon, a bit of a surprise package, but on their day are capable of losing, but also capable of beating any team in the league because of the players they've brought in. Thanks for that, Glenn. We're going to wrap up the show now, and thanks for your contributions as always. Am I right in thinking that the way the season's panned out, for all the upheavals and whatever we've had and this changing landscape, it looks to me like back to the 80s, Linfield for the league, Glenn's for the cups? Glenn? Again, it's got the potential for that to happen. It looks as if Linfield are in a prime position to win the league. Both teams are still in the cup, and whoever wins that match, as we said, will certainly be favourites. But the game's changed from the 80s. Linfield have dominated Irish Cups and League in the noughties. So anything can happen. But I think definitely this year, Linfield's league title, the cup could go either way. Thanks, Glenn. Chris?
Friday night, I'll tell you that. As Glenn says, they're back in the 80s, that's when we were growing up. It was the Blues won the league and the Glens won the Irish Cup. It has changed massively. The Glens Irish Cup, they were a bit of a, the tradition was the Irish Cup, but they haven't had that success. They've had two of recent times. But I think if you offered the Glens that scenario right now, they'd be more than happy to take that. Very much so. Okay. Chris, great to have you on. Thanks very much. Spike, as always, thank you. That's it for now. Thanks for joining us. We hope to see you next time on Football Express.